Hey, so good morning, Joe, and thank you so much for agreeing to come on my podcast, The Handshake. That is so relevant in terms of your interest in AI and my interest in holding on to that human connection. Let me first introduce you to the audience in terms of your descriptor, which I think is beautiful on your LinkedIn. And husband, dad, educator, author, facilitator, speaker, consultant, coach, photographer, which I know is a great interest of yours, wearer of many hats, people gardener. And I love to see that. Talk to me a little about that notion of being a people gardener.
A few years ago, I was having a chat with a friend of mine who is a coach. He runs a coaching business, and he asked me. He said, "Describe yourself in 2 words." And I mean, that's a challenge, isn't it? How do you encapsulate kind of yourself in 2 words? And I said, "Oh golly, I need a bit of time to think about it." He said, "No, come on, come up with 2 words." So I said, "Well, most of what I do is education of some kind." University education, it's online training, it's photography education, whatever. And the education talks to me. I mean, I'm very much leaning in the side of kind of building people up rather than trying to be the sage on the stage all the time. Education is to empower, is to encourage people and upskill them and make their possibilities more.
Give them wings. Absolutely.
Give them wings. That's right. And people gardening, I just think, is a nice descriptor because, I'm an awful gardener. I don't have a green finger on my body. Penny has to beat me up to mow the lawn. But I think this thing of nurturing is already there. And sometimes they go in different directions. And sometimes, it's a straight path, and sometimes it ends up as a kind of bushy mess. But it doesn't matter because everybody's different. And, kind of trying to facilitate that growth, I think, is the thing that kind of lights me up. Yeah.
Yeah. I love the idea of the ripple effect as an educator. You send out, share your learning, and you don't know where it's going to stop. You pass on and on and on. I have a saying, learning hoarded is growth denied, but you are giving way to that growth by sharing your learning. And your latest publication fascinates me. That whole, the 150 apps study smart with AI, the 150 essential apps for the student who's trying to make their way through third level, I'd say, or even second level, is it?
Yeah, second, third, fourth level. I mean, it's suitable for most levels, to be honest, because these apps now will adjust to the level that you're learning at. I mean, some of them are aimed at school. Some of them, are just more general. But most of the AI apps out there will adjust to your level of learning and depending on how you talk to them and input, your prompts and stuff, they will potentially give you useful results.
They will shake hands with the person where they're at. And so it can be quite individualistic as opposed to my notion of being more generalized.
Absolutely. I mean, I do a lot of training in AI now, and a lot of it is still taking people from the ground up. They've just heard about ChatGPT. They've had a little play with it, but when I show them that there are lots of other apps out there, it's kind of like wow moments. Oh, wow, we didn't know about this. We didn't know about that. Let's go and try this and all the rest of it. And so getting people past, the training we've had for the last 30 years, has been to interact with computers via the Google single line URL bar, where we type in a question and we get a set of links. And now we've got a new tool that gives you far more value and richness if you engage with it. And I mean, your kind of analogy of, the handshake. I mean, if we just talk to the computer in single instructions, it's a kind of single shot prompting, they call this. Okay. Ask one question, get an answer. Yeah. But a handshake brings people together.
Yes.
There's an element of trust. There's an element of vulnerability because it's your weapon hand and you've put your weapon down, to do the handshake thing. And there's a physical contact and you are establishing a physical relationship with a handshake. And I think this is kind of almost where we will move towards with AI. You don't have a relationship with Google.
Mm-hmm.
The Google search bar.
Absolutely. Yes.
But we're going to have relationships with AIs. And I mean, I'm not suggesting that we all have AI boyfriends and girlfriends. I mean, that's a little strange, but but we
will train AI.
AI is going to become part of our lives.
Mm-hmm.
And we're seeing the start of that. Apple have just kind of announced their Apple Intelligence on the phones, and we're getting it through, Google's now putting itself onto all the Android phones and stuff. So these apps we will start to share our lives with. We will start to share our information with, because, you're asking it questions. I've got an Alexa sitting in front of me here on the kitchen table. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And the amount that thing knows about our family is just phenomenal. Because every time there's a question around the dinner table, or, we want to make a meal or whatever, and we're asking for recipe instructions or whatever, it's all in there.
It's all in there. So
now, once that knowledge base starts to be integrated with the stuff that they're giving us back, I mean, it's like your best friend knows you inside out because they've seen you good and bad every day, and all that.
Which leads us on then to a load of the questions that I would have as a traditionalist,
yes.
Coming from my background in traditional delivery of education, etc. Before I went into the world of organizational psychology. You're involved with UCD Smurfit School of Business. I actually met you at the Innovation Centre in
That's
UCD
right.
today. Yeah. But so you specialize in AI, Universal Design for Learning, UDL, and online teaching, learning, consulting in projects and risk management, and you're a nonprofit board development. So you work really with the master students on project management in the day-to-day, and with AI now beginning to enter it also. So let's delve a bit deeper, and for our audience, for our listeners, to maybe answer some of their questions. So in my analogy, the handshake, the symbolism of this notion of exploring trust, collaboration, and the evolving relationship between the humans and AI in education. So trust in AI versus the human connection. Do you think AI can truly replicate the human connection? Or are we jeopardizing the development of trust in that teacher-student relationship?
Okay, well, that's two questions. So let's split them out because they're not mutually exclusive, I don't think, necessarily. So can AI truly replicate the human connection? Probably not. But we will get to a point where it's difficult to tell the difference.
Yes, that's what the question.
Not yet, but in 20 years' time, there will, most families will have a humanoid AI. Yeah, that looks and sounds like a human, that reacts like a human, but has, all the smarts of a super intelligence and all the rest of it. So I think that AI has a huge possibility. I mean, they're already, doing research now on loneliness, on suicide prevention, where vulnerable people who typically are very isolated, not always, but very often, people who are isolated, research is starting to show that they can interact with AI, and it's almost like a relationship, and it's lessening the feeling of isolation. So if we all have an internet connection and a device of some kind, and these AIs now talk to you. It's not just typing anymore. I mean, the social media feeds that feed me this week have been, a lot of them have been talking about Google's new Notebook LM, which can take, text or uploads of documents and things, but it turns it into a little 15-minute podcast between two completely natural sounding American speakers. And it just sounds like a real thing. So I think this thing of human connection, we're primarily kind of educated, I suppose, and brought up to the fact that, so far we've only really had relationships mainly with humans and our dogs and cats, maybe. But kind of that's it. Now, I think there will be a third kind of member of the family soon.
So that's where the intergenerational thing will come in as well. I'm approaching this from the background of having been, my brain trained traditionally, and this traditional manipulation of knowledge and information, etc. But the youngster, the 2-year-old now coming up, the digital native, will have a totally different take on things.
Completely, because it's just always been there. I mean, my kids just ask Alexa stuff all the time. And it's just like, Alexa, what's this? What's that? What's it? And it's just completely natural. They don't even think about it.
So it takes me to the idea of the ethics and accountability.
Yeah.
The handshake implies that both parties are held accountable, part of the agreement. So with AI, who's held accountable? Is it the education institution? Is it the provider of the AI? Where does it stop? Should accountability lie with the educator or the AI developer?
Or both. That's the last of your question there, or both. Well, let's come back. Let's come down to AI for education then. Now, the AIs are to a large extent a big black box. Okay. And, apart from a few very, very high powered, AI scientists, nobody knows how they work. You spit
the information in, and
this stuff comes back, and it's very, very complicated. And whether you're using generative AI or whatever machine learning tools are behind it, we don't know. I don't know how my car works. I get in and I press the accelerator and it goes. And when it doesn't go, I take it to the garage and they fix it. And
you can't take it to the regular mechanic you'd have taken it to 20 years ago because he
no, that's right. There's the electronics now, don't they? Yeah. So I mean, we as individuals, I think at the moment, because this is all new, there's a big focus on kind of, should we use AI? And if we do use it, should we declare our use of it? And how do we declare our use of it? And what use of AI is enough and what's too much? And where does that line, sit, and the rest of it? And I think at the moment, while everybody is figuring this out, and we are all still figuring this out, nobody has all these answers. And I mean, I haven't got all the answers by any means, or any of them really. We're trying to figure it out as we go along. I think the accountability lies with both. We're hoping that the AI companies will train their models ethically. And we know that in a lot of cases, they perhaps haven't, based on the current ethic of, paying people for their work, copyright infringement, all that kind of stuff. We know that that's been kind of broken a lot. Absolutely. Because they're just sucking everything in. And I mean,
we're really at the mercy of commercialism when it comes to
we are very much. I mean, then these are big corporations, and we're talking multi-billions and billions that are being invested. Almost every week we hear of a new, round B or round C of funding, and we're talking millions and billions of dollars. So this is
how do you rein them in, though? I mean, you see the power of big pharma, the power of tech. It's the power to influence governments.
It is. It's the power to bring down governments. And I mean, this is why there's so much focus at the moment with, the American elections, and we've got an election cycle coming up and stuff like that. And then you've got misinformation and bad actors perhaps using these very powerful tools now that can produce very convincing looking material that, is saying things that aren't true. For whatever ends they're hoping for. So there's lots of worrisome aspects to the possibilities of AI. Yeah, it's kind of like a gun. You can use a gun to defend your home, or you can use your gun to go off and shoot people in a school.
It's the intersection of good and evil, really.
It is, and it's a scary, scary thing when you find yourself with access to a new tool like this that can be used for harm or for good.
I imagine it will come to a point where we will not be able to distinguish between what is real and true and what isn't. And I'm still trying to figure out the definition of misinformation and disinformation. And we all seem to be taken with the dialogue and the use of words
Yes.
now, and they've taken legs.
Yeah.
Even in discourse on the media.
Mm.
And it has to have an effect on how we think and how we use language ourselves on the ground.
Well, I mean, most of us, our world, our bubble, is the people we talk to and encounter and the situations that we physically encounter. Yeah, that's our main kind of bubble. And then the next bubble out is probably our interaction with the world through media.
These media, yeah, absolutely.
Now, if that media is feeding us information that is biased, is untrue, or whatever, we don't necessarily know that that is the case, because we don't all have the time to fact check everything we hear. And if you keep hearing it enough, you kind of start to believe it.
Yeah.
And this is scary because AI is very capable of churning out massive amounts of information. And
we're very quickly, absolutely.
These server farms that are, full of nefarious programmers that are generating thousands, millions of tweets and millions of posts and stuff about stuff that is clearly, not true. But we don't know it's not true when we read it. We kind of read it and we look at this and this politician said this or whatever, and kind of you think, oh dear, Now, later on, 2 months later, when you're faced with a set of names on a voting card, does that memory, that post that you read,
influence your decision?
You don't know, do you? You don't know what's affecting you. So there's a lot of downsides and scary sides to this. And I mean, all we can do is try to educate ourselves. I mean, some of the AIs, Anthropic, for instance, was started by a couple of guys that left OpenAI, the ChatGPT company, because they weren't happy with the kind of ethics around the way ChatGPT was being built. So they built Claude, which is another AI tool.
Right.
Claude is based around an ethical kind of manifesto, and you can go on the Claude website and they have this ethical manifesto, that they do know.
Well, that's admirable in that that whole human nudge to do it right. You think of trust building. You think of the human meeting the human and the trust building. I mean, it strikes me that with the infiltration of AI, there's an erosion of trust.
There's an erosion of trust because we know that it can be used for bad things at the moment. And, there's this rush to this new technology, and there's so much money involved that it's clear that corners are being cut and things are, perhaps happening behind the scenes, but we all want our new toys.
Yeah. And I mean, our young are totally dependent on our generation to lead it properly and to leave them with a legacy that is true, authentic, and worth embracing. Creating the handshake moments, you can't beat that in terms of human to human and trust building. And I think the rise in anxiety among our young is highly associated with screen dependence, and maybe the pull back of that human interaction, and people become so busy, things need to be done quickly, and children maybe have less quality time with their parents without the interruption of the mobile phone or the screen or whatever.
Absolutely. I mean, I've got a 12-year-old and a 13-year-old, and it's really interesting because kind of Danny has just gone to big school, and they were expected to have a mobile phone. So when he turned 13, he got a mobile phone.
Sure.
April is a year behind him, and she's champing at the bit now because she sees him with his mobile phone, and he turned it on Monday morning, and there's a WhatsApp group for his class.
Right.
And
that can be explosive. That can be good, and it can be very bad.
And I mean, he hadn't looked at it, I don't think, over the weekend, because we try and kind of, keep a lid on this use of this stuff. And he said there were 800 messages in that WhatsApp group. since he last stopped on
Can
Friday.
you see the potential for inclusion and feeling of belonging or exclusion?
Fear of missing out. Yeah, terrifying.
In group, out group stuff.
Yeah,
In
absolutely.
action on an app.
And the amount of, I mean, they've both got tablets, and they, he's into Minecraft, and what he likes to do now is go up for a couple of hours in the evening, and he logs on to Minecraft, and he has a Minecraft server, and 3 or 4 of his friends log on to the same server, so they're talking to each other on the phones, and then they're collaboratively, exploring and building and fighting and stuff on this server on their iPads. Which, in a way, I mean, they're interacting and they're collaborating, and he's
in a different way, yeah.
But he's making friends kind of almost at a distance. And I know he's meeting them at school, but the stuff that we see is all kind of him virtually interacting with these people.
And he's not coming from the typical home. He's coming from
he's coming from one where we are aware that there are dangers here, and we do try and do something about it. And some people are not, and some people, don't have that capability of police.
And I think this is a certain generation that associate a sophistication with their children's adeptness with technology, and unwittingly they let them down the route of not watching what they're at because they're not capable of it, and they just let them off, which we have seen can lead to all sorts of things. But in terms of, in your opinion, are the ethical concerns around fast advancement of AI, is there a need for us to pause and really come to grips with it from a governance level? I mean, you've all sorts of things arising. You've got the bias and fairness, you've got the transparency versus the explainability, you've got the privacy versus the data security. I mean, go through the airport now and you have all sorts of hoops to jump through. And when do we draw the line with what's necessary and what's really an invasion of privacy? Or is privacy gone as we knew it?
I think privacy as we've known it has gone if you, like most people, engage in online discourse.
Sure.
Because, to be honest, once you put anything on the internet, it's out there forever. So that privacy is gone, because that data will be found and used and mined forever. Okay, so if you're concerned about your information and your life being available to other actors, then you've got to stay offline, and we can't do that anymore, really, because soon there won't be cash. Soon, we'll have to go online. We have to have a bank account. There's a court case going on at the moment about a chap who didn't have a bank account, and he said, I don't have to have a bank account, and they basically said, well, if you want to do this job, I think he was a taxi driver.
Yes.
Have a bank account and allow people to pay by credit card. And he said, no, I only want them to pay by cash. And he said, well, if you want to be a licensed taxi driver, that's part of the deal. So it's not optional anymore, this stuff. We don't have any real control over it. I think the European Union, they have an AI Act, which is kind of, in force now, and is kind of coming more into force. And I mean, we're seeing the effect of that because, certain new AI tools and things, they come out in the US, but they can't yet be turned on in the EU. A lot of Apple Intelligence isn't going to be enabled in the EU initially because there are guardrails. So the EU legislators kind of, pretty quickly put some pretty good guardrails up. Now, looking at those guardrails, I think in general they're pretty good.
And sit those guardrails now beside GDPR.
Yes.
Are they going to shake hands?
Yes, they are. Yeah. And
that's going to be a difficult.
As of yesterday, we have a new Irish Justice Commissioner who's responsible for a GDPR in Ireland, in Europe. So that's good. But do we have much control at a more granular level? No, not really. I think a lot of people are asking for control. All the first year of AI was, this is an amazing new toy. Let's put prompts in and see what it can spit out, and it's magic, and whatever. Yeah. What we're moving into now in the second year of kind of post ChatGPT 3.5 or whatever, what is kind of, okay, so we know this stuff is magic. How do we now control it? How do we control the use and the misuse or dissemination of our data? So almost all the tools now are offering, some kind of guardrails. When ChatGPT first came out, anything that you put into a prompt, anything you uploaded, any document you uploaded, became part of their training data. Sure. Yeah, they eventually put in a little checkbox, in the settings that you could turn that off. Yeah, but it was a long time coming. It was, I think it was about a year. Now, Claude has always said, we don't use your uploaded data and your chats for training.
Right.
Do we know whether that's true or not? We kind of
have got to trust
that it's true. There's a trust level in that. But so often trust has been broken by big corporations who say they do one thing and do another.
And really, the ordinary person on the ground is powerless to do anything about it.
Yeah.
In terms of hoping that our children are educated in the broader sense for survival,
yes,
and for working from their own agency without technology, where are we at with the generation coming up? Will they be lost?
Yes.
Should AI fail? Should technology go down for a day? Will they be able to survive?
Yeah, a lot of people would be completely lost, probably myself included. I mean, we had internet went down over the summer I had a 10-day outage.
Wow, hard on you.
and I couldn't get internet on my phone. I couldn't get internet, and I mean, and I teach online. I mean, so I ended up living in the library in Lucan for 10 days because I just couldn't function without this internet connection and stuff. And I mean, it's a bit like, it reminds me a little bit of the American survivalists. These people who kind of live out in the country and have a cellar stocked up with beans and water and stuff, in case the apocalypse comes.
Waiting for the end, yeah.
And I mean, and they know how to live off the land because they've done that. They've learned how to hunt and they've learned how to, eat the right berries and things. But I mean,
their autonomy, yeah.
Most of us, we're brought up in a society where this stuff just works. And
but that's where the autonomy and the control and all collide,
Yeah.
I mean, who's in the control tower? Job displacement is one thing, but the surveillance and control is the worrying part for me.
Yeah. I mean, it is a worry, and I think the privacy is being eroded and will continue to be eroded. I mean, we've got face recognition now. We know that the police and major sporting events and stuff, can use this to scan for known terrorists and stuff. And there are some laws in there now limiting the use of this stuff, but people will get around it. You can always buy technology that will bypass what you should be doing and shouldn't be doing and stuff. I think we just have to be now used to the fact that electronic surveillance of all different types is just the way it is.
And how would you feel, for instance, about your children being microchipped, or you being microchipped?
Yeah, it's coming. There's no doubt about it. I mean, if they could just pop a little microchip in my wrist or whatever, and I don't have to worry about carrying my passport or my credit cards and stuff.
Is that not simplistic when you think of the loss of autonomy and who's in the control tower, as I say, in relation to your person? This for me is a whole soul thing, and it's your uniqueness and all the rest,
I'm still me. I mean, until they can in real time map my brain and read my thoughts and perhaps even change my brain.
That's coming, I think.
That's coming, yeah. I mean, Neuralink is happening, So I mean, but at the moment, we still walk around in our own heads with our own thoughts, and we have to either talk or type or do something to communicate those outwards. Now, is that going to change? Yes, and some people will embrace the technology that that comes over the next 20, 50 years, and we will get combinations of people and cyborgs, and the Borg are coming. You will be assimilated. That stuff is going to happen, and some people will embrace it, and some people will hate it and will never go near it, never be microchip. But there'll be a spectrum there. Yeah.
As a dad first, and as an educator, how are you preparing your children, and how are you preparing the students you're interacting with? And you interact with an international group of students. How do you, well, let's say on two different levels, on the level of dad with your children, how are you preparing them?
They see me talking to classes all the time. They see me with the books and whatever. I've since ChatGPT started, I mean, we've sat down with it and explored it together. I've shown them what it will do. And
they're lucky children that you can do that.
And I've talked about the dangers, and I've said sometimes this, let's ask it a question, and I'll take them through the answer, and I'll show them, actually that bit's wrong. Yeah. They say, really, it looks really good, but no, that bit's wrong. That doesn't exist. And I'll show them how we can maybe do another question and check that that's wrong and stuff like that. So it's just a matter of educating them. But I think it's disingenuous of anybody to kind of try and ban this stuff, because you can't. It's out there. Pandora's box is well and truly open.
Right.
All we can do is we can try and educate the people around us as best we can, because again, we're learning.
Do you think a dependence on AI ultimately will render the human brain lazy? This cognitive impairment.
In some cases, definitely. In some cases, yeah. I mean, some people will just go to AI, ask the question, take the answer, and put it down, and it bypasses all the cognitive work of assembling a knowledge and a structure and connecting dots and learning. Yeah. So there is definitely a negative effector to operating in that mode with AI, of just asking it, getting an answer, accepting it. Okay.
And a simultaneous giving over of power and autonomy, and giving in to whatever forces, be they political, commercial, or whatever, that are driving AI.
Yeah, because most people will take the easy way out.
Come to the creative brain, and I know you're interested in innovation. Now, I would always have associated innovation and creativity with that organic, and some people are just pure genius with it organically. Yeah. How can it be enhanced through the use of AI without encroaching on the organic creativity?
I met you at the Innovation Academy program that I did a few years ago, where we were doing creativity in educational leadership, I think it was. And you did a session on that, didn't you? And that's where we first kind of connected. And it was wonderful and it was interesting because that program was over about a year. And the first half of it was in the Shackleton Lounge in the O'Brien building over at UCD in Belfield. And then COVID started.
That's right.
Halfway through that module, we like the rest of the world, we went online, and we didn't meet in person again after that. But so we got both the physical interaction of sitting and making things in the Shackleton Lounge, which was fantastic. But then we also explored with IA the way of kind of learning and teaching and being students online as well. I think the creativity is very often fostered by interacting with other people, but you can't always do that. Okay, other people are not always around. So for instance, I mean, one way that I've used AI when I'm putting my books together, or when I'm designing a teaching session or whatever, what I'll quite often do is I'll start with a piece of paper. I actually still use actually still use. And
Use the pad. Sure.
and I mean, I tell my students, keep all your notes online, but I also have a written notebook, because the physical act of writing and drawing mind maps and diagrams and things, I think, connects, left brain, right brain. So I'll jot some ideas down, and that tends to kind of let me flow a little bit. And then I will put those into the computer. And I mean, these days now, I can just take a photo of the page that I've written and upload it into ChatGPT, and ChatGPT can use that now and know about it, know everything I've written. But then what I can do is I can say, okay, I want you to be De Bono's 6 thinking hats for me.
Sure.
Okay. And rather than having 6 people around a table, the AI is going to do
it virtually for you.
Yeah. Well, and so I can kind of, knowing these different tools, I can say, right, you be that tool, or you be that person. Okay. You play devil's advocate. Yeah.
But you have the backdrop of the traditional training of the brain. You take the 2-year-old coming up who will not have that backdrop. And I mean, in some cases, handwriting is going out of fashion. Let's say, for instance, graphology is huge in the legal system in France. Yeah. You look in Canada. I had a conversation with the professor of education at a wedding a few years ago, and he said, look, the jury is out as to whether we need to know how to write or not. And I said, are you for real? He said, you can talk to the machine. But I said, you'd think of hand-eye motor coordination, you'd think of the precision of using the hand for the holding the pen, etc. I said, we regress to ape if that happens. And he had a great laugh.
Yeah, I don't know that we will. And I've got personal experience of this. My son Danny has hypermobility, and his thumb, is double jointed and stuff. And in, I think, about 2nd class, we were just noticing he was taking a long time to do a lot of his homework and stuff. And we had him tested, and he's in the bottom 1% of people's writing capability. And he's a really bright kid.
Sure.
I mean, he reads a book in an hour. And you can open any page of the book and ask him about it, and he'll tell you what's on it.
That's a real skill.
He takes it in. He's not quite eidetic memory, but he's got getting closer. So, but he can't hold a pen or a pencil. He can't write. So he has an accommodation at school, and he takes a laptop.
Sure. Nice.
We put him through typing. He's now got 60 words a minute typing skills. And he's 13. So I mean, he's fantastic. But the fact that he's not using a pencil isn't slowing him down. Right. And to be honest, the world that we're moving into, unless he wants to become a graphic designer or an artist or a painter or drawer, those skills are necessarily needed. Now, sure. Is that to say those skills shouldn't be taught and shouldn't be encouraged? Absolutely not. But I can't play the guitar. April's learning the guitar. There's just because one person or a cohort isn't going to do these things doesn't mean that we don't offer them.
It's difficult for a certain generation to get out of their mode of thinking.
Yeah, it is. But I mean, the new, like you said earlier on, the youngsters coming up. The youngsters coming up are. This is just their DNA. This is just the
a versatility that we didn't have. Yeah.
The water they swim in. I mean, these are fish in a different sea to us.
Yeah. That's another phase. So, I remember reading a book by Barat, AI, The End of the Human Era.
Right.
Right. And it was a real shocker initially reading it a number of years ago. Mm-hmm. We are at that junction of the end of the human era as we knew it.
I think it's an inflection point. I don't think it's the end of the human era. Just like the camera wasn't the end of art, and just like the calculator wasn't the end of mathematics. The doomsayers always say it's the end of, and it's not. Things carry on. People will still be ploughing the fields and writing songs and falling in love and doing all the wonderful stuff that human experience, gives us. Yeah, they'll just be doing it alongside the amazing and scary capabilities of these new tools that we have to.
They might have dates online as opposed to meeting.
Well, absolutely. But
already.
How many people perhaps through COVID met their people that they now, have proper, in-person relationships with on a Zoom call?
I think COVID was a changing point and maybe catapulted us 30 years on.
Yeah. Yeah, because all of a sudden we were starting to interact with each other through the computer more, and that kind of prepared a lot of people for perhaps this new inflection point. But that's all it is. It's an inflection point. It's a new capability. And like any new capability, it has its positives and it has its negatives, and we need to try and help each other figure both of those out in a way that means we can move forward in a positive way rather than in a fearful way.
So, what are the existential risks with AI? To sum it up.
Oh, I mean, Skynet. Go back to Arnie. At some point AI gets self-aware, decides that humans are a pestilence on the planet, and turns off all the electricity and all the power stations and unleashes nuclear Armageddon on us. I mean, there's your existential doom.
We'll be well gone. We'll be well gone.
Well, hopefully. But I mean, that's a possibility. If you that film, the Oppenheimer film, there was that little worry, wasn't there, that if we do this nuclear bomb thing, it could break the world.
Sure.
But sure, it'll be grand. Yeah.
I know. But I know you have an interest in the UNDP's 17 SDGs.
Yes, the SDGs.
Goals. So, just as a final, how can AI help advance our mastery of the 17 goals?
I mean, the 17 goals are a call for action, aren't they? They're a set of focuses that we should be aware of. And I mean, my students in one of their modules focus on SDGs, and they have to do a Make a Difference project. And I encourage them to use AI, and I say, okay, figure, do your Make a Difference project, use AI, ask it for ideas, ask it to do the research, to find stuff that can help you then make a difference. Absolutely. So, I mean, if nothing else, AI is a fantastic research tool.
Yeah, I was going to say the correlation.
It's read all the books. You can only read 20 or 30 of the books. The AI has read 2,000 books and can assemble a lot of that information to you very quickly. There's a new AI that you should have a look at out of Stanford University. Look up Storm AI from Stanford. And this is a little beta kind of AI that can kind of write a pretty convincing article and source really good material. As it does it, and so it's all sourced and cited and all the rest of it. This is the kind of tool that is coming through that's going to be, make AI really, really useful to us. So yeah, there's downsides, but there's also the upsides.
A lot of upsides.
I prefer to look at the upsides because I can't control the downsides. I mean, do what you can, worry about what you can control. If you can't control it, worrying about it isn't going to do any good at all, is it?
No. I must introduce you to the founder of iPledge and that whole notion of empowering every man, woman, and child right across all nations.
Yeah.
And how AI, etc. It's all AI powered. I must introduce you to that.
It's going to break a lot of barriers down. I mean, Khan Academy and stuff. As if we can get everybody an internet connection, everybody can learn. That's
where the digital divide might happen, where people don't have or can't afford, but others can.
But that's always going to happen. The people who've got money can always afford the better gear, the better toys, and all the rest of it. But I think as a society, what we have to do is make sure that at least everybody has a basic access level to information and stuff. And AI is going to help in that big time.
Sure. So to wind up, where can people get in touch with you, follow your newsletter, which is hugely important for educators? Talk to me a little as a wind up.
Connect with me on LinkedIn. Just look for Joe Houghton, and I'll pop up on LinkedIn, or drop me an email, joe.houghton@gmail.com. Always happy to talk to anybody. Come and give you a talk, or whatever.
Excellent.
Yeah. And It's been lovely talking to you, Teresa. It's been great.
Lovely. Thank you so much, and let's meet again as we advance. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you.